Okay, this is 9-2, representing linear functions. So a linear equation is an equation whose graph is a line. So like right here, the y equals 60x, that's an equation. It's also linear, which means it makes a straight line. Linear literally has the word line in it. Okay, so a linear function is the same thing. It's where the graph of the solutions form a straight line. It's just another way to say linear equation, linear function. So one way we can find points on that graph or solutions is to make a function table. We've done these before. So for example 1, it says find 4 solutions of y equals 7x. Write the solutions as ordered pairs. So we choose 4 numbers, so we get to choose those. So make it simple. -1, 0, 1, and 2. It's that function table we've seen before. X is your input value. Here is your rule where you work it out. Y is the answer you get out. Then you have to go back. This is the only part that's new. Restate your X and your Y as a point. This is your answer. When it says find 4 solutions, that is the 4 solutions they're talking about, 4 points on the graph. We don't typically write y equals here, so you don't have to, because if you look, it's right here. Y equals 7x. So you don't have to write that every time. Just work it out here, put your y here, and then restate x and y. So what I want you to do, we're not going to do all 4 of these. Just do 1A and 1C. Try those, and then I'll go over it with you. Okay, on 1A and 1C, we had to find just 4 solutions, which means find 4 coordinates from that line or equation. So that's where we draw our table, and it's a function. We get to choose what 4 values, since I just said find 4 solutions. There's more than that, but we get to choose which 4. So I always just make it simple, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So then we just plug those in. Y is going to equal x plus 2. Well, here my x is -1. -1 plus 2, excuse me, is 1. Then I have 0 plus 2, because my whole rule is x plus 2 on this. So 0 plus 2 is 2. Then I have 1 plus 2, which is 3, and 2 plus 2, which is 4. So then I just went ahead and made another row, column 2, just put my coordinate. Rewrite your x and y. When x was -1, y was 1. When x was 0, y was 2. When x was 1, y was 3. And when x was 2, y was 4. There is your 4 solutions. Okay, that's all it's asking. Find 4 coordinates. So then on 1C, we have y equals -2x plus 5. Remember, it's like we've talked about before, like that whole little function. X is what gets plugged in. The rule is where the work happens. Y is what comes out, that's your output. So I'm just going to keep it simple again. So I have -2 times -1 plus 5. Using order of operations, I multiply first. -2 times -1 is +2, plus 5 is 7. Here I have -2 times 0 plus 5. Anything times 0 cancels. I'm left with 5. -2 times 1 plus 5. -2 times 1 is -2, plus 5 is +3. -2 times 2 is -4. -4 plus 5 is 1. So I'm going to go back and rewrite my points for my answers. -1, 7. I'm just rewriting my x and y. 0, 5, 1, 3, and 2, 1. There is our solution for that. Okay, this next example is the same type of problem, but they start us out in a word problem. So it says games cost $8 to download on a cell phone. Ringtones cost $1. Find 4 solutions of 8x plus y equals 20 in terms of the number of games x and ringtones y Darcy can buy with $20. So you first have to rearrange this to y equals. Then we plug it into that table that we just had. So we're not going to do one of those. Okay, so now we're going to look at graphing linear functions, and we're going to use what's called the X-intercept and the Y-intercept. So you might need to write these kind of your own definition down, but the X-intercept is where it's the point where it crosses the X-axis. Okay, the Y-intercept is the point where it crosses the Y-axis, and they make a line. Now, your Y-intercept is also where your X will be 0. Your X-intercept is the point where Y is 0. That's how it's on those lines, because one of them is 0. Okay, so let's look at an example that does this. So example 3 says graph negative 2x plus 4 equals y. Okay, well, there's a lot we got to do before we can graph. Let's first, find those intercepts. So like I said, the x-intercept is where y equals 0. That is the point where we've got to find what x is, but y is 0, because that's the only way it can cross the x-axis. So what you do is you take that equation, and we're just going to plug 0 in for y, and then solve for x. So when we do that, that just goes away, and we have negative 2x equals 4. Then we have to divide both sides by negative 2 to get that x equals negative 2. So that is a point, negative 2, 0. Then we go back and find the y-intercept. To do that, we go back to that original equation, negative 2x plus y equals 4. But now we're going to plug in 0 for x to find our y-intercept. Okay, so I plug 0 in for x, and negative 2 times 0 is just 0, and then we're done. It's y equals 4. So that is the point 0, 4. So to graph this, I go back now and graph these 2 points on a number line, or a coordinate grid, 0, 4, negative 2, 0. Then you just draw a line through those 2 points, and we've graphed it using our intercepts. So I want you to go ahead and do 3A and 3B. I know you won't be able to enter your graph as an answer, but I still want you to do it in your composition book to see if you've done it correctly. Find your X and Y intercept so that you can graph those. On 3A and 3B, we are graphing using our X and Y intercepts. So on this first one, y equals x minus 4, we've got to find our x-intercept and our y-intercept. X-intercept is the point where your y is 0. Your y-intercept is the point where x is 0, because what it means, again, x-intercept is where it crosses your x-axis, so that's when y is 0. Your y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, which is where x is 0. So to solve those, we just plug that in. So to find my x-intercept, I plug 0 in for y, and then I solve for x. So I add 4 to the other side. So when y is 0, x is 4. So my x-intercept is 4. So now to find your y-intercept, you plug 0 in for x. Well, that just means y is negative 4. So now we graph those 2 points. So draw you just a little graph. X-intercept is the point 4, 0. So I go over to 4 on the x-axis and put a point. My other one, my y-intercept is 0, negative 4. So I don't go either way, and then I just go straight down 4. Then you draw your line through it. We've graphed that one using our x and y intercept. So then on 3B, we have x plus y equals 2. So my x-intercept is where y is 0. Y-intercept is where x is 0. So I'm going to plug those in. So to find my x-intercept, I'm going to plug 0 in for y, which just means x is 2 when y is 0. Then for my y-intercept, I am going to plug 0 in for x, which also means the y is 2. So for x-intercept, I go over 2, 0, y-intercept 0 up 2, and then draw our line. Okay, example 4, now we have a word problem. It says after X hours of driving, there are Y gallons of gasoline remaining in a car. For Becca's car, this situation can be represented by 1.8x plus y equals 18. So they've gone ahead and given us the equation that we can use, okay? 1.8x plus y is 18. State the x and y intercepts and then graph the equation. So that is just part A. We have to find our intercepts and use them to graph. So to find the x-intercept, we plug 0 in for y. So whichever one you're solving for, you're going to plug 0 in for the other one. So when we're solving for the x-intercept, we plug 0 in for y. So we would get that our x-intercept is 10, so that is the point 10, 0. Then for your y-intercept, we plug 0 in for x, and we get y is 18, so that is the point 0, 18. So then to graph it, if you notice on their graph, they only did that first quadrant. Like here's the rest of the graph. But they just did it in that because it was all positives. Everything is positive. So they only showed us in that first quadrant. So 0, 10, 10, 0, and 0, 18, and then connect the line. So there's our X and Y intercepts and our graph. Part B says interpret the X and Y intercepts. So this tends to be a little trickier for everybody in Pre-Algebra and Algebra 1. So we know our X-intercept is the point 10, 0. So they mean interpret it in terms of what this problem was talking about. Well, X was the hours of driving. So it says this means that after 10 hours of driving, her gas tank, or Y, because Y is the gas, would be empty because it's 0. Okay, well, the Y-intercept was 0, 18. That means that before she starts driving, because she has driven 0 hours, she has 18 gallons of gas in her gas tank. So when X would be 0, the Y, which is gallons, would be 18. Okay, so I want you to try for A and B. I'm not going to grade you on B right now. I just want you to try it because you will have problems like that. But you're going to do for A and B, and then I'll go over it with you.
Last problem, number 4. It says a cleaning service charges $80 plus $40 per room cleaned. The total cost Y can be represented by Y equals 40x plus 80. So they go ahead and give us the function. Y equals 40x plus 80, where X is the number of rooms cleaned. So Y is our total cost. X would be the number of rooms that are being cleaned. Okay, so then A says state your X and Y intercepts, then graph it, and then B says interpret X and Y intercepts. So on A, to find our X and Y intercepts, we're going to, for X-intercept, we're going to plug 0 in for Y. For Y-intercept, we plug 0 in for X. Because the Y-intercept means the number where X is 0. X-intercept is the number where Y is 0. So if I plug 0 in for Y, and then solve for X, I have to subtract 80. So I have negative 80 equals 40x. Then, to keep the x there and get rid of 40, it's being multiplied, so we divide. 8 divided by 4 is 2, and negative and a positive, so x is negative 2. Then y-intercept, I plug 0 in for x. So that means 40 times 0. Anything times 0 cancels. Y is 80. So to graph that, if you haven't already figured this out, you don't have to count by ones. Okay, we have to go all the way to 80. So what I'm going to do, since that one goes to 80, but the other one is 2, I'm going to count by maybe 5s. I maybe should have counted by 10s, but 60, 70, 75, 80. So I'm counting by 5s. So my x-intercept is negative 2, 0. Well, if I'm counting by 5s, negative 2 is like right here. And then my y-intercept is 0, 80. So it is almost straight up and down. As you can see, my line didn't go through them very well. Almost straight up and down, but not quite. Okay, so that's part A. For B, so I told you, you don't have, if you didn't understand B, that's okay. All it means is go back and look. They told us Y represents the total cost. X was the number of rooms cleaned. So for your X and Y intercept, this would just mean if they cleaned negative 2 rooms, it would cost $0. This one would be if they cleaned 0 rooms, it would still cost $80 because remember that initial $80 fee. So that's all it means. Can you write out what these mean in terms of the problem that they're talking about, which was total cost and rooms cleaned?